woman goes into a tattoo parlor and tells the tattoo artist that she wants a tattoo of a turkey on her right thigh, right up just below her undies line. She also wants him to put Happy Thanksgiving under the turkey. So the guy does it, and it comes out looking real good. The woman then instructs him to put a Santa Claus with Merry Christmas up on her left thigh. So the guy does it, and he comes out looking good too. As the woman is getting dressed to leave, the tattoo artist says, "If you don't mind, could you tell me why you had me put such unusual tattoos on your thighs?" She said, "I'm sick and tired of my husband complaining all the time that there's nothing good to eat between Thanksgiving and Christmas." An old lady went into a bar in Ibiza and saw a man with his feet propped up on a table. He had the biggest boots she'd ever seen. The old woman asked the man if it's true what they say about men with big feet being well endowed. And the man grinned and said, "Sure is, little lady. Why don't you come to my apartment and let me prove it to you?" The old woman considered she might never get an offer like this again and was curious to find out for herself, so she spent the night with him. Next morning, she handed him a PS50 note, blushing. He said, "Well, thank you. I'm really flattered. Nobody has ever paid me for my services before." "Don't be flattered," she replied, "and take the money and buy yourself some boots that fit." Man walks into the front door of a bar. He is obviously drunk. He staggers up to the bar, seats himself on the stool, and with a belch, asks bartender for a drink. The bartender politely informs the man that it appears that he has already had plenty to drink. He could not be served additional liquor at this bar, but could get a cab called for him. The drunk is briefly surprised, then softly scoffs, grumbles, climbs down off the bar stool, and staggers out the front door. A few minutes later, the same drunk stumbles in the side door of the bar. He wobbles up to the bar and hollers for a drink. The bartender comes over and still politely, but more firmly refuses service to the man due to his inebriation. Again, the bartender offers to call a cab for him. The drunk looks at the bartender for a moment angrily, curses, and shows himself out the side door, all the while grumbling and shaking his head. A few minutes later, the same drunk bursts in through the back door of the bar. He plops himself up on a bar stool, gathers his wits, and belligerently orders a drink. The bartender comes over and emphatically reminds the man that he is clearly drunk, will be served no drinks, and either a cab or the police will be called immediately. The surprised drunk looks at the bartender in hopeless anguish. Cries, "Man, how many bars do you work at?" Once while traveling to Nally, Rama found himself in the company of a group of soldiers. They were all veterans of war, and soon they got to talking about their experiences on the battlefield. One old soldier told of the time he had single-handedly slain 7 enemy soldiers. Another gave a detailed description of the manner in which he had held an entire enemy battalion at bay. When they had finished, they looked condescendingly at Rama. "I don't suppose you have any adventure worth telling," said one of the grizzled warriors. "Oh, but I have," said Rama. "You have?" said the soldiers. "Yes," said Rama. "Once while traveling, I chanced upon a large tent. I entered, and there, lying on a mat, was the largest man I had ever seen. I recognized him at once as a dreaded dacoit who had been terrorizing that part of the country for years." "What did you do?" asked the soldiers, their interest now fully aroused. "I cut off his toe and ran for dear life," said Rama. "His toe?" said a soldier. "I told you should have cut off his head while you had the chance." "Somebody had already done that," said Rama, grinning. An elderly couple were killed in an accident and found themselves being given a tour of heaven by St. Peter. Here's your oceanside condo. Over there are the tennis courts, swimming pool, and 2 golf courses. If you need any refreshments, just stop by any of the many bars located throughout the area," said Peter. "Heck, Gloria," the old man hissed when St. Peter walked off. "We could have been here 10 years ago if you hadn't insisted on exercising 3 times a week and eating that stupid oat bran. Wheat germ and low-fat food." The circus owner ran an ad for a lion tamer, and 2 young people showed up. One was a good-looking lad in his mid-20s, and the other was a gorgeous blonde about the same age. The circus owner told them, "I'm not going to sugarcoat it. This is one ferocious lion. He ate my last tamer. So you guys better be good or you're history. Here's your equipment, chair whip, and a gun. Who wants to try out first?" The girl said, "I'll go first." She walked past the chair, the whip, and the gun, and stepped right into the lion's cage. The lion started to throw the pan and bade to charge her. About halfway there, she threw open her coat, revealing her beautiful naked body. The lion stopped dead in his tracks, sheepishly crawled up to her, and started licking her ankles. He continued to lick her calves, kissed them, and then rested his head at her feet. The circus owner's mouth was on the floor. He said, "I've never seen a display like that in my life." He then turned to the young man and asked, "Can you top that?" The young man replied, "No problem. Just get that lion out of the way." A large, well-established Canadian lumber camp advertised that they were looking for a good lumberjack. The very next day, a skinny little man showed up at the camp with his axe and knocked on the head lumberjack's door. The head lumberjack took one look at the little man and told him to leave. Just give me a chance to show you what I can do, said the skinny man. Okay, see that giant redwood over there, said the lumberjack. Take your axe and go cut it down. Yes, skinny man headed for the tree, and in 5 minutes he was back knocking on the lumberjack's door. One cut the tree down, said the man the lumberjack couldn't believe his eyes and said, where did you get the skill to chop down trees like that? In the Sahara forest, replied the penny man. You mean the Sahara desert? Said the lumberjack. The little man laughed and answered back, sure, that's what they call it now. A&C woman walks into her accountant's office and tells him that she needs to file her taxes. The accountant says, before we begin, I'll need to ask a few questions. He gets her name, address, social security number, etc., and then asks, what is your occupation? The woman replies, I'm a whore. The accountant balks and says, no, that will never work. That is much too crass. Let's try to rephrase that. The woman, okay, I'm a prostitute. No, that is still too crude. Try again. They both think for a minute. Then the woman states, I'm a chicken farmer. The accountant asks, what does chicken farming have to do with being a whore or a prostitute? Well, I raised over 5,000 cocks last year. 2 lady darts teams, one of all blondes and one of all brunettes, chartered a double-decker bus for a weekend bowling tournament in London. The brunette team rides on the bottom of the bus. The blonde team rides on the top level. The brunette team down below is partying and having a great time when one of them realizes she doesn't hear anything from the blondes upstairs. He decides to get up and investigate. When the brunette reaches the top, she finds all the blondes frozen in fear, staring straight ahead at the road and clutching the seats in front of them with white knuckles. The brunette asks, what the heck's going on up here? We're having a great time downstairs. One of the blondes looks up at her, swallows hard, and says, yeah, but it's okay for you. You've got a driver. The richest man in the world decides he wants to be blessed by the Pope at the Vatican. So he travels to Rome, gets in his finest suit, and goes to the Vatican to view the morning papal procession. Sure enough, the Pope moves through the throng of people, and the man is close enough to stick out his hand for the Pope to take it, but the Pope moves right past him to stop in front of a dirty, ragged beggar a few feet away. The Pope takes the beggar's hand, whispers into his ear, and proceeds to walk away. Of course, the rich man thought, he's not going to stop for me if I'm dressed like this. The rich man follows the beggar as he leaves, stopping the beggar in an alley. The rich man offers the beggar $1,000 if he'll trade clothes with him. The beggar agrees, and the two exchange outfits that afternoon. There is to be another papal procession. The rich man, now dressed like the beggar, moves to the front of the crowd and waltz. The Pope comes back through the crowd and, according to plan, heads right for him. The Pope takes his hand, leans down, and whispers in his ear, I told you once already, I never want to see you in here again. The woman starts dating a doctor. She eventually becomes pregnant, and they don't know what to do. About 9 months later, just about the time she is going to give birth, a priest goes into the hospital for a sites infection. The doctor says to the woman, I know what we'll do. After I've operated on the priest, I'll give the baby to him and tell him it was a miracle. Do you think it will work? She asks. It's worth a try, he says. The doctor delivers the baby and then operates on the priest. After the operation, he goes to the priest and says, Father, you're not going to believe this. What happened? Asks the priest. You gave birth to a child. But that's impossible, says the priest. I just did the operation, insists the doctor. It's a miracle. Here's your baby. About 15 years go by, and the priest realizes he must tell his son the truth. One day, he sits the boy down and says, Son, I have something to tell you. I'm not your father. The son says, What do you mean? You're not my father. The priest replies, I am your mother, and the archbishop is your father.